We're going to open this up now to a more general discussion about precision crop load management. The project that we have been working on ended this past August, and we've submitted our final report to the USDA. And with this webinar, we provide a report to the fruit industry. But I don't think we've made as much progress as I had hoped when we started this project. And I'm very keen to try to move this work forward. Problem for me is I'm going to retire in next December of this year, so I have a year left. But nevertheless, I want to try to help those who want to continue in this project to potentially submit a new SCRI proposal for future funding. Some members of the current team have opted to go on to other topics, and we've decided to add other additional people to the team that weren't on the past team. But nevertheless, what I would like to do is to describe briefly what we're thinking for the next project. But my main goal is to hear from anybody who's on this call that's not a researcher on what they think, what we should do next. What advice can you give us? So briefly, I want to describe that the new project would focus on just 4 states, Washington, Michigan, New York, and Pennsylvania. And in each location, there would be a team composed of an ag engineer and then horticultural people. For New York, it would be Jiang. In fact, Jiang has agreed to lead the project since I will retire. I'm going to continue on the project even after retirement, but I hope my successor will continue this work. But in addition, there will be other Cornell people on the project. In Michigan, the project will include Emily Lavely and an ag engineer whose name I can't remember right now, Yu Jiang. You can unmute yourself so you can add in what I'm forgetting.
Yeah, that's Yu Lu from Michigan State.
In Washington, the project leaders would be Gwen Hoheisel and Bernadita on the horticulture side and Lav Cott on the engineering side. And in Pennsylvania, it would be Long He that's already on this project, along with one of the pomologists there, either Sarah Seta or Sean, maybe both. And that team would then try to focus on the objectives primarily of variable rate spraying and on engineering solutions, such as those described by Yu Jiang and Long He, including engineering solutions to the fruit growth rate model using camera systems, rather than having to harvest and weigh fruit or measure the diameters with the caliper. We have sort of several objectives laid out in tentative form, and we want to see, what you think of those objectives. But that would be a broad view of what a new precision crop load project would include. One other aspect that's unique about what we've considered and thought about for the future is what we're calling a consortium, which would be a partnership with tech companies, all the ones we've worked with plus other ones, and growers and the academic researchers. And there would be money set aside in the project for that consortium to do work. So for example, a tech company that wanted to set up a trial on a grower's farm for variable rate spraying could partner with a university person to take the data, the grower to provide the orchard, the tech company to supply the tech, and then money would go to that project to be divided both to the grower, the researcher, and the tech company. So we hope to build a partnership through this consortium with all the tech companies working in this space. Still, we would focus on dormant precision pruning, blossom and post-bloom blossom thinning, and hand thinning. On anything related to those topics, both engineering solutions that might lead to, say, robotic pruning, which would be, I think, a very doable goal, to just semi-automated crop load management using computer maps and sprayers and variable rate spraying. That's what we're thinking. And I want to invite you, Jiang, to add to that. I don't know if you have the three potential objectives where you could show them, but if not, add whatever you want in just a few minutes, because then I'd like to just spend the balance of the time hearing from people that are on the call, anybody on the call.
Yes, exactly. Thanks so much, Terence, for setting the foundation for where we ended up with this current project and where we're gonna start from, for the new project. So I'm gonna just quickly share two slides. I don't want to go heavy, but just some kind of key things in my mind for our new SCRI project. So as you mentioned, for the objectives in general, we would consider one objective really tackle, horticulture knowledge or horticultural practices that can help the growers to immediately improve their management on daily basis. But at the same time, also, try to identify at least one engineering solutions that can also help the growers even during the middle of the project, rather than always just setting the ambition and expectation for the future. Well, I want to highlight robotic pruning, in my opinion, is much more on the right to really kind of fully fly. If we got another SCRI for 4-year development, but the more important, with the pressure from EPA regulation on different chemicals, I do believe variable rate spraying would be another important topic from engineering, because based on our experiences, it's not really a turnkey solution. Every single grower now can just put money in and just get the intended results. There are a lot of glitches between different technologies, and that's what we hope to take that risk from the research project and then really distribute the guideline or a kind of a more formulated solution back to our apple industry in the US and beyond. So more important, I think also for the horticulture objective, I want to emphasize while we are developing engineer and myself as an ag engineer, I also want take this research project to emphasize the horticultural knowledge that can also have a long-term impact, and especially around crop load. What if we have a homogeneous crop load for our orchard systems? What that implies and impact the rest of our orchard production, and especially how that connected to our either sustainability or profitability goals to our growers at various size. So that's where I really set the vision by myself, and would love to hear all the feedback from you all today. And also just a quick figure. We talk about variable rate spraying, and that's the 4 main steps. But how to connect all of them and streamline as just what you turn on your key for your pickup truck going from your home to anywhere. That's what we hope also can be delivered to our Apple industry through the new SCRI project. So with that, Terence, I'm gonna get back to you and open the floor for our audience today, or maybe Craig.
There are a couple quick ones in the box that pertain to the discussion. The first is, could the academic team include a tech researcher or computer engineering professor?
I'm curious about, what's the specific aspect there, but in my opinion, engineers are all kind of being solid trained, and we are also open. If in particular there are any kind of a specific technical challenges related to solid computer engineering research focus. And just to share some of the background, myself actually being trained as a computer scientist and roboticist, and now just working on agricultural systems. So when we see we as ag engineer, that means we also have very solid engineering background across the discipline, like from mechanical, civil, to computer and mechanization, all sort of engineering. But yes, if there are some very fundamental challenges from computer or mechanical engineering, we are open to just open that slot for getting the right expertise to help the project team.
Thanks, you. Another is a suggestion for a project manager to be an integral part of the funding request to maintain frequent and steady communication between the regions, researchers, and tech companies.
So I'm not sure, Terence, if you have more, thoughts on that, but I think that's a great comment to our future SCRI project. And I completely agree. We will try to set a dedicated, project manager. And especially that role, I personally envision can also communicate across not only across the region for our particular SCRI project, but can also communicate with other ongoing Apple-related SCRI or pruning-related or robotic, technology-related SCRI projects, so that we can frequently exchange idea and really kind of facilitate the development and adoption of different technologies for our Apple industry in general, especially related to crop load management.
So I'm going to dissent. I think project managers are a waste of time and money for these SCRI projects, but I won't be the one leading this. So if others feel it's valuable, we can spend money on it. I have a whole reasons why I have that opinion, but I'll just dissent briefly.
There's a comment, more of a comment in the Q&A box. Would like to see a continued focus on how to use data from vision systems, next generation metrics, i.e. tree volume, leaf area, next generation models, pollen tube 2.0, also continued reliability and precision of vision systems.
They're good comments.
Yeah, I think that's a great one.
While people are thinking of other input they might give us, I want to add another piece that I forgot to add, and that is more and more we're concerned that storage quality of fruit is affected by crop load. And so not only that, also the response to PGRs is affected by crop load. For example, we're doing a number of trials with products to improve fruit color, but when crop load is too high, they don't work. And so crop load ends up impacting a lot of things in the orchard, but also during storage. And so that has to be a part of the new project. But in that vein, there's some very interesting new work with Liliang Chung and Chris Watkins showing, particularly with Gala, and we already know this with Honeycrisp, the nutrient ratios in the fruit itself, nitrogen to potassium, potassium to calcium, impact storage disorders of the fruit. So variable rate nutrient management using camera systems to quantify the variability in the orchard instead of soil electrical conductivity, which we've done some work on, and I don't like that much, will be a part of the new project. And that's one of the things Bernardita will handle, and then we'll work on it here as well. And there's some really wonderful variable rate fertilizer applicators that can run off of task maps, very similar to the blossom maps we're using, but measuring other characteristics of the tree to manage nutrient application, and then marry that with storage studies. So while I'm waiting for other questions, I also want to just comment that it's been wonderful for us to work with several tech companies, either the camera companies or the sprayer companies. And I hope we can expand that cooperation and continue it. Some of the people in the companies have tremendous knowledge, and they will be very valuable to bringing this to actual application on the farm. And I hope that we can build this, what we're calling a consortium or a partnership with any tech company that wants to work with us on trying to bring that technology to the farm in a way that won't frustrate growers by all the little tiny weird things that crop up when you try to do this on a farm by yourself.
And a good one has come in, Terence. Is it possible to bring in a targeted economist or business professor to make sure that the research products are reaching maturity, the outcomes are focused on commercial yield and cost benefit? They're aware this might not be the focus of the research aspect, but critical to adoption and impact.
So that's a very good comment. I didn't mention in my description that there is an economics group. This time it will be led by the Washington ag economist, Karina Gallardo, and there are others within her group. And I think the specifics of that question is something we need to pose to them, because I'm not sure I even understand the question enough. But one of the frustrating things about this is to work on technology and have that company go bankrupt and disappear and the technology is lost. We have been extremely impressed with the cell phone technology of Pometa, and it's gone. And I'm sure that that may happen more again, because often these tech companies are startup companies. They're trying to get a foothold, and they may or may not be able to continue. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're suggesting there, Jim, but there is an economics group with our new team.
Another one, as work is done on vision systems, it would be wonderful if someone could come up with a standardized software and data collection system. We all want that, that can be applied across different hardware systems. They second the comment about looking forward to collaboration between the tech companies and the researchers.
Yeah, thanks so much for the comment, Robert. I think that's exactly why, in this new SCRI project, we envision a consortium. And one of the kind of a goal in that consortium is all the tech companies, when they develop their technologies, they are also aware of standards, or at least communication protocols. So that instead of, every single one creates their own communication protocol and later on create the caveats between, across the systems, now we hope they communicate that information earlier enough. So once each of these technology is ready, the growers can actually shop around and just put them together as their own pipeline to really streamline from data gathering all the way to the actual spraying at the field.
So Jim Williams describes that he'd volunteer his orchard. So that's one of my goals, Jim, is to work with Smart Apply. I've talked to the highest level of John Deere, and they have sort of just given me, well, we can't do it right now answer. But you have to get their computer system programmed to accept what we call these shape files of blossom density to do variable rate spraying with a Smart Apply tractor and system. Though there's a number of New York growers that have Smart Apply, and it's wonderful for reducing pesticide usage because it detects trees. But what we can't do yet is get John Deere to program it, their computer system, to accept the file you need to do variable rate spraying. I invited the John Deere people to join us on this broadcast. I don't know if any of them are on here. I'm not meaning to pick on John Deere, but it's one company that we really hope we can get into the variable rate spraying system, because a number of growers have already bought the system.
So I think I can just share the screen if we don't have additional questions at the moment. Thanks for reminding this, Liang. I hope people can actually have the right, font size to read it through. So basically, this is the pre-proposal, or called stakeholder relevance statement. We submitted last round, actually in 2025. And one of the objectives is to actually build the consortium and also try to think of different strategies to manage the risk of, for example, disappeared startup, and then leave the growers, in a loophole while they are kind of investing some of the efforts, not only about, the cash inputs, but also equipment, time, and their, field efforts as well. So one of the key ideas, as Terence just explained, is the consortium, so that we want to make sure the academia can work very closely also with the tech companies, so that we can really facilitate the commercial available tools that's showing promising results in research, and then translate it to the growers' hand for their actual production management. And the other thing is actually also an open source gallery. So I discussed that with Terence. We are still brainstorm what might be the best way, but then I think it's great to hear any of the comments from you all. Is if the land grant mission universities for example, as all the universities here in this project, would also host a gallery of tools. They are open source. They may kind of have a slower pace in terms of new features, but they are steady, which means if, for example, you use any of the cell phone tools to achieve some basic task, this would always be in your safe place to retrieve that tool for some basic features. But of course, because this is owned by nonprofit, institutions, we have, limited resources to commit for any of the fast development to, accommodate all the different requirements from our growers community. And what we hope is some of the startup companies or individuals may just pick up from that gallery and then build the tools much faster and deliver back to growers one day. So it's a kind of idea, try to balance between the risks of running a startup for some of the ag technologies where our growers heavily rely on versus later on how we can really facilitate this translation between academia, growers, and these technologies or startup companies.
Yeah, there's a couple more comments than questions. Vivid Machines looking forward to working with the consortium. Thanks to everybody for their hard work. Another, they have a smart apply system, grateful to have it, but disappointed with the limitations of the software, including the promise of vision compatibility. Hope John Deere wants to collaborate.
Me too. Well, I don't know. We're getting very close to time. I don't know if you can pull up those other three objectives, but while you're doing that, let me just drone on a little bit more. I am really enthused about the whole effort to control crop load more precisely because it makes a lot of difference in the dollars back to grower. This kind of work, I think, has an economic impact that will be beneficial to keeping the fruit industry competitive. It has to be done on a national level. We can't do just New York, and Washington can't just do Washington. We have to work together. And even though we're competitors, it will benefit everybody to be able to manage crop load more precisely, both pruning, variable rate spraying, and hand thinning. I think that the relationships we developed with some tech companies have been extremely valuable. I'm really grateful for their support and their working with us. We need to include even more tech companies so that growers with any brand of sprayer could adopt variable rate spraying with some limited additional investment for the computer to control the sprayer and being able to then make it work on their farm. I also think that the impacts of crop load on so many orchard outcomes, of storage outcomes, the impacts of whether other PGRs work, the impacts on return bloom, mean that this thing has to be done very well every year. And the weather is so variable that we end up with all kinds of problems every single year, despite our best efforts. So I'm really hopeful that this can progress. So that's my closing comments. I don't know if you have a quick view of those three objectives.
Yes, I do have that. Let me share the screen again. Just in the full screen there. Can you see the full screen? Yeah. Okay. So basically, what we anticipate for this new SCRI includes 4 objectives. What I described for the fourth is more on the extension and economic analysis there. But for objective 1, that's actually related to horticulture practices and how we can either improve our knowledge space from the horticulture processes perspective, but also what's the new practices we can really suggest for our growers at different regions across the US to adopt different technologies and really improve their management efficiency and achieve their profitability and sustainability goals. And the second one is more on the engineering side. as I mentioned, one of the targets is to actually make it a turnkey solution for variable rate spraying for apple industry across the US. We consider various, possible solutions ranging from, existing commercial sprayers and all the way to maybe new robotic related, target spray. That's more kind of a futuristic solutions. But anyway, our goal is try to ensure our apple growers can really adopt these technologies and use them to better manage their crop load, which is actually very impactful to the rest of the production itself. At the same time, we answer the question. One of the goal is how we can integrate the knowledge we learned from the current SCRI project, either to use a multi or hyperspectral imaging to do a rapid assessment of the crop thinner's effectiveness, or to do more robotic, pruning, that we can really, streamline the process and try to automate the process as much as we can by using different, technologies in the future. And the third one is actually the economic benefits analysis. So we try to also understand, by bringing these technologies, what does that mean to our growers in terms of their real, return on investment value, and what's the possible, barriers for them to widely adopting these technologies. And that's where we definitely will have an economic, team to help us to better understand this process. And of course, the first one, as I just explained, is just the extension, but also more on the new efforts to emphasize on technology translation and dissemination. So with that, I gonna just stop here and see, Terence, do you have any final notes, or any of the audience may have final comments to us?
Craig, is there any other comments?
Yeah, there's a couple things in here. One's just a comment. Munkoff's Fruit Tech Innovators would like to do some trials in the field with growers and with the consortium as well. They look forward to it. Here's a question for you. Is it possible to skip generating task maps and spray in real time, i.e. less complicated because of the GPS?
So yeah, I will provide more details answer there. But briefly, they have different pros and cons depending on your goal. And sometimes we do need the global information before we adjust the variable rates. And sometimes we just need the very local information. For example, if you just want to escape the non-kind of alive tree area to see the chemical, then I think what the solution here makes more sense. So it highly depends on what's the overall goal there, and we need to choose different technologies. Yeah, I will type in more details.
Thanks. It's a good comment in here with suggestion. As much as this is research-based, I think some more focus on the grower and commercial usability, cost and partnership should be highlighted where it can. The project should show some industry-wide adoption and scaling at reasonable cost for growers. Ease of use is a major piece in getting growers to use a platform, software, and some UX, UI designers could be consulted where applicable as well.
I think that's a wonderful suggestion, for the engineering team to consider how this technology being developed. But also, I think this would be a great suggestion to the consortium, what we envision as a consortium, right? Because at the end of the day, the products are not from the university researchers. It's more from these technology companies. And that's why we hope this consortium can also help to facilitate all these communications faster than the current pace to really help, the growers lower down the barriers to adopt these technologies widely. Yeah, but thanks for the suggestion.
Thanks. I don't have any more. Terence, I just left 3 in there for you because they pretty much relate to variables rate spraying.
I'll try to answer them by written answer, but let me just conclude with this final thoughts. The funding for this project has to come from a national source. The SCRI is the best source. It's highly competitive. It highly depends on whether the fruit grower community likes the idea or not. So we hope that participating in this webinar and thinking about the future of your farm that you will come away enthused that there's a real nugget of important management strategy for you coming out of this project now and the future project. We hope that we could get strong support from individual growers, but also from grower organizations like in Washington, the Tree Fruit Research Commission and the Washington Apple Commission or whatever, and in Michigan and New York and Pennsylvania as well. Those are the 4 biggest states of production. As we move forward, I hope that when we need a letter of support and we send out a call, that you might be willing to write a letter of support. At the moment, the government has not said if they will even have an SCRI call for proposals this year. The government shutdown really set everything back. However, the USDA was one of the only government organizations to receive a full year budget. So they're not going to have to go through a shutdown coming up later January. They have the money in their budget for an SCRI program. So I assume they will have to try to launch it, even though it's getting late. It should have been launched in October or September. If it's going to be launched, it'll probably be a very quick turnaround time, and we're just trying to get ready for that possibility by throwing this idea out today. It's a pretty broad group, talking about some ideas we have, but very, very open to suggestions from you all about what we should do different or how we could make this project deliver something very useful to your farm. I appreciate your participation today. It's been a long little meeting, but it's been wonderful. I wanted to spend the last part of my career on this topic, and I hope that it'll continue after I retire. So with that, I wish you all the best and have a good pruning season, and let's get ready for another precision pruning, thinning, and hand thinning season. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.